All right, how's everybody doing today? How's it going? How was lunch? We're gonna get started soon. So I just want to introduce myself. My name is Macy Johnson. I am a television host and executive producer for My American Dream, which is on KPTS Channel 8. So I was really excited to be here and be involved. Excited to be here today, so I just really want to talk about what happened this morning, what we're doing this afternoon. Some of the speakers that came up this afternoon that really stood out to me, just speaking about poverty and speaking about, coming from single parent households and what we can do to get involved in our communities. So for me, I was one of 4 children growing up with a single parent. My father was an alcoholic in and out of prison throughout my entire childhood, so I watched the struggles and challenges that my mother faced on a day-to-day basis. Eviction notices were handed out, lights were turned off. And so this is why I am so excited to be a part of this event, because I'm looking at people who want to change their communities, people that want to get out there. And so with that, I'm only 21 years old and I'm getting a show started. I'm a national spokesperson for communities and schools. And so I want to let people know that just because you're born into poverty, that does not mean that's where you're going. Yes, absolutely. There's definitely a higher statistic, I don't know the number exactly, that, if you're born into generational poverty, you have a higher chance of not graduating from high school. And I graduated from high school. My brother's in medical school. We're doing incredible things. And so I just want to continue the narrative of that. You can create your own success. And I'm just so happy to be here today. I'm loving the yellow shirts. I'm just going to kind of get started with some logistics for the afternoon sessions. So just be sure to turn off your cell phones or on to vibrate as courtesy for our speakers. Bathrooms are located in the hallway on the east side of the ballroom. Women for Kansas merchandise continues to be available. They accept cash, check, whatever you have. They are willing to work with you. Get some merchandise. I think I'm going to get some myself. If you have lost or misplaced something, the Lost and Found is located at the registration table. And also, your name tag is required for the banquet this evening, so please do not forget it. There will be a 15-minute break at 3:30 prior to the conclusion of the afternoon session, so if you have to get up, stretch, move around, get that going at 3:30. So I would love to introduce our speakers this afternoon. The speakers this afternoon will all focus their remarks on critical issues that are facing our state and our citizens, as well as our nation. The first session will address immigration, the second, gun violence. Our speakers are Claudia Amaro, Sandrine Lisk, and Judy Sherry. Yes. So a little bit about Claudia. She was born in Tijuana, Mexico, entered the country with her family right after the amnesty of 1986. She grew up in the U.S. and was forced to move back to Mexico in 2006 after her husband's deportation, taking her U.S. citizen son with her. Her story is one of resilience and hard work to overturn the current immigration policies. So welcome, Claudia. Everybody's just going to be moving up and coming and sitting down, so nothing formal. Our second speaker on this topic is Sandrine Lisk. She is the managing attorney for immigration law and advocacy. For more than 2 decades, she has provided legal assistance and representation to U.S. citizens, lawful residents, and new immigrants seeking immigration benefits or relief in the United States. And finally, Judy Sherry, the final speaker for this session, is the co-founder and president of Grandparents Against Gun Violence and chair of Heartland Coalition, a program of grandparents against gun violence. Please welcome all of our speakers.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I walked in right when they were introducing the heroes, and this is not on my speech, but I really want to recognize, I'm probably almost sure that I'm the only undocumented in this room, And I want to recognize and thank from the bottom of my heart two champions and two heroes for me and for my undocumented community in this room. One of them is Ponkawi Victors. She's, I want to say, the only legislator who really stands up every time my community is under attack. She doesn't hesitate. She doesn't say there's nothing we can do in the state level. She doesn't back up. She's always there in the front line. The other person is Janice Bradley from the Peace and Social Justice Center and the Education Fund. So far, since I came back, she has been a pillar in my development and my activism. That's so far the only organization in Wichita who we undocumented feel welcome and protected and supported. So just my recognition and my thank you from the bottom of my heart for those two ladies. And well, I want to thank you all. I feel very honored to be here in front of you today. My name is Claudia Amaro, and it is very sad that something like what is happening right now at the border has to happen for many of us to realize that our community, the immigrant community, is under attack. It has always been. But it seems like every day, every president term, it gets worse. I am here today to share some facts about immigration. I will focus on the immigration between Mexico and the United States, since that's what I can share from my own experiences. But I'm also going to open my heart to you and share my own story, which you can already find pieces of it on internet, newspapers, magazines, and 3 different books. I also want to ask for your support to start the path to a better country. Because although I was born in Mexico, and I am very proud to be Mexican, United States, and particular Wichita, is my home. And I know a lot of people don't understand that you can equally love 2 countries and be proud of both, but it happens. Immigration has always existed. People often leave the place where they were born for different reasons. Many are lucky they don't have to cross borders because they only move from one state to another, from one city to another. The immigration broken system we are facing now comes from years ago. Everybody remembers and have heard about the Immigration Reform and Control Act signed by Ronald Reagan in 1986. That reform gave citizenship to many people, but it also placed tougher immigration laws. NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement between Canada, United States, and Mexico, went into effect in 1994. This agreement created a tremendous hardship to Mexico in different areas. The Mexican shoe and toy industry basically disappeared, and Mexico started to import corn from the United States, leaving local farmers in extreme poverty. United States corporations moved to Mexico to avoid high taxes and paying minimum wages to their employees. Mexico's minimum wage right now is $4.70 per day. Most people do not get benefits from these corporations. NAFTA basically caused people in Mexico already struggling to survive to move looking for better opportunities. President Bill Clinton's government realized what was happening, and in 1996, the US Congress passed the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act. This law, that law is the one separating our families until today. This law separated my family 12 years ago. Why don't you do it the right way, many ask? I wish somebody can show me what does that mean. I moved to the United States when I was 12 years old in 1988, 2 years after the amnesty. I'm the oldest of 5 sisters. We came in with a visa. We moved to this country after my father was killed in Mexico. My mom was only 30 years old with 4 girls at that time. She was so scared, but brave enough to come to this country, a country she didn't know, with a different language. She went through a lot in order to offer a better life for me. I graduated from high school in Colorado with very good grades, but I couldn't go to college because of my immigration status. My family moved to Wichita in the mid-90s. I did not only fall in love with this wonderful city, I also found love here, and my son was born here. I got married in 1998 to a wonderful, hardworking man. He is also undocumented. We had a very happy life, started a business, we were buying a home, and had like what we consider a perfect life in Wichita until the morning of 2005. that I received that call that we undocumented people never want to receive. They told me my husband had been arrested. I drove immediately to the place they told me. Some officers were there and they lied to me. They told me they were police officers and I trusted them. They asked me questions and I answered. We both were arrested that day. I was able to get out the next morning with a bond, while my husband's case was harder. We fought his case for almost a year. Unfortunately, many attorneys only see money and not human lives. And he ended up being deported in January of 2006. It was devastating for me and my son, who was only 6 years old then. My family is what is known a mixed status family, where some are citizens, some dreamers, some are still with no status. And I had to come up with a decision at the time to leave my home, Wichita, my family, my mom, my sisters, my friends, to follow my husband and keep my little family together. Me and my son moved to Mexico to reunite with my husband in February of 2006. Once in Mexico, my husband couldn't find a job that will meet the basic needs for our family. I certified myself as a teacher, and my salary was not enough. Violence in Mexico escalated in the following years, and my son was bullied for being American. In 2012, my husband was kidnapped for ransom by 2 Mexican police officers. We were able to gather the money, and he was later released. At that point, all I wanted to do was come back home. Me and my son started writing letters to politicians, different organizations in the United States to get help to come back home. Finally, in the summer of 2013, NIYA, the National Immigrant Youth Alliance, a national organization of dreamers, called me and asked me if I wanted to come home. I did not think twice before I said yes. A couple days later, my son and I, he was only 13 then, were arriving to the border. NIYA organized and trained 9 dreamers who, for different reasons, had returned to Mexico and realized our home was the United States. We went through very intense training, very similar to when the civil rights movement trained for civil disobedience. On July of 2013, all 9 of us, dressed in our high school caps and gowns, since all of us graduated from high school in the US, walked to the port of entry asking President Obama to let us come back home. We were detained for 17 days in an immigration detention center in Eloy, Arizona. Inside the detention center, it wasn't easy. It was challenging. I got to know the extremes of human feeling, so much suffering, and at the same time, the unbreakable fate of the women who were there searching for a better future for their children. After the community coming together, making phone calls to the representatives and signing letters to President Obama, over 30 congressmen signed a letter to President Obama asking for our release. Later on, we were released to come home. My husband did a similar action a month later. He turned himself at the border with our attorney. In his case, he had to stay in prison 2 years and 3 months in detention in order to come home and reunite with me and our son. Now we're back. We are fighting to stay home. We keep going to courts, and we are still in danger of deportation. Everything we have gone through, we have done it for my son, because not only those innocent kids at the border pay the consequences, also American citizens are going through hell, living in fear that a loved one is going to be taken away. Every night, before I go to bed, I pray that those kids at the border are receiving good care from people. I hope there's still humanity on the people around them, because I know their parents are living in hell. I have been in those detention centers where they profit off our pain. I know exactly what those parents are going through, and it's so hard. My son was taken away from me when I crossed the border. My mother was there to take care of him while I was in detention. But I remember all the desperation that I felt. Those detentions happen very often here in Kansas, too. I get calls every week from the community about family members being detained by ICE. They get processed here in Wichita in that building on Central and Woodland, although they say no. Yeah, they do. They get transported either to Chase or Butler County jails. On February of 2017, last year, there was a story on the local news on KWCH with the title, Immigration Detention Pay Bills in Kansas County. If you search for it, you'll find a lot more information. Private prisons and counties are profiting with our pain. These are times when we all need each other. And what can we do, many ask? We need to start by listening to other stories. Mine is only 1 in 12 million in this country. We can say, post pictures and our opinion on social media, but action is what we really need. That is why I want to ask you to register to vote, to be very conscious who you vote for, investigate, ask questions, go to forums like you are right now. People like me who can vote rely on all of you guys for change. Motivate your friends, family members to register to vote. I always observe that the same people against us, immigrants, is the same people against your jobs, this country's education, and your economy. 4 years ago, I was speaking in front of some legislators. Some of them were looking at their cell phones or watches, not caring much about what I was saying. I made them a promise that day. I knew many of them did not care about me or about what I was talking about because I did not represent a vote for them. I can vote, I told them, but I will work to have at least 10 people to vote on my behalf. And I promise you right now, and I promise you that I will make sure that my son, who was only 14 then, who is a U.S. citizen, and all of his generation never forget what you are doing and not doing for my community. This year, 2018, I was able to fulfill that promise. 2 years ago, I started the campaign Kansas Adopt a Citizen, which mobilizes the undocumented community to register and motivate voters. New citizens and younger generations. With this campaign, we have been able to register hundreds of new voters. In this year, in January, my son turned 18 years old, and he voted in the primaries for the first time. This is the time. Elections are coming, and Kansas needs to wake up. Make the right choices. We need to stand together for one another. Let's have zero tolerance, but not on the borders. Let's have zero tolerance to hate, to injustice, to apathy. Sorry, I got lost. I want to finish today with a quote that I wrote for the book Los Otros Dreamers, and it says, "Even though many have pointed fingers at me because of my age, which disqualifies me from the DREAM Act that was being proposed at the Senate, I am a dreamer. I'm proudly born in Mexico, but raised in the US. I am proud of this weird and new culture that is now raising its voice. We have been the little Frankensteins of a broken system. They made us believe during our school years that we were special with the same rights as everyone else, no matter our race, color, or nationality. But then, one day, as adults, they start to call us criminals." Thank you.